Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Today it is the last lecture on the physiology of respiration, and in this lecture we are going to talk about the respiratory diseases. As we already know that respiratory diseases can be divided into two groups: the obstructive lung diseases and the restrictive lung diseases. Obstructive lung diseases are associated with an increased resistance to flow of air, and these diseases include the chronic bronchitis and bronchial asthma. Of these two, we are going to talk about the bronchial asthma. While restrictive lung diseases are characterized by interstitial pulmonary fibrosis and generally do not produce airway obstruction. There are a number of restrictive lung diseases, and of those we are going to talk about the tuberculosis mainly. We are briefly going to talk about the pneumonia, and one more obstructive lung disease we are going to talk about in addition to bronchial asthma is emphysema. So we are going to mainly talk about the bronchial asthma, emphysema, tuberculosis and pneumonia. First we are going to talk about the emphysema. The literal meaning of emphysema is excess air in the lungs. While it's a disease which is characterized by obstructive and destructive process occurring in the lungs. Emphysema can be caused by chronic cigarette smoking or congenital deficiency of alpha-1 antitrypsin. In most of the cases, the emphysema is caused by many years of cigarette smoking or chronic cigarette smoking. So this is the common cause, but it can also occur due to congenital deficiency of alpha-1 antitrypsin. So this was about the causes of emphysema. Now we are going to talk about the pathophysiology of emphysema. And in pathophysiology, we are going to learn how the causes of emphysema, how does the cigarette smoking and congenital deficiency of alpha-1 antitrypsin result in emphysema, which is an obstructive and destructive process occurring in the lungs. So in the lungs we have the elastase activity, and we also have the anti-elastase activity, and normally there is a balance between the elastase and anti-elastase activity in the lungs. The elastases and the other enzyme collagenases are present in the lung tissue, in the neutrophils and in the macrophages. We can simply say that these are the enzymes which are released by the leukocytes. And anti-elastase activity is possessed by alpha-1 antitrypsin. So it is an inhibitor of elastases and collagenases. So normally there is a balance between the elastase and anti-elastase activity. Overactivation of elastases and inhibition of alpha-1 antitrypsin, which is anti-elastase, produces the imbalance. Again I am repeating that overactivation of elastases or a greater release of elastases and inhibition of alpha-1 antitrypsin produces the imbalance, which results in emphysema. Now we are going to learn how does this happen. So we just said that smoking is the common cause of emphysema. Now because of smoking, there is an imbalance produced between the elastase and anti-elastase activity. Due to cigarette smoking, there is inhalation of the irritants which are present in the smoke. These irritants derange the lung defense mechanisms. So smoking, it causes the deficiency of alpha 1 antitrypsin. Alpha 1 antitrypsin, it normally keeps the elastases as well as the collagenases inhibited. So elastases and collagenases are protease enzymes, while its inhibitor is alpha 1 antitrypsin. So irritants in the smoke, they cause damage and deficiency of alpha 1 antitrypsin, which leads to the failure of elastase inactivation. And there is increased release of elastases from the leukocytes. So irritants in the smoke cause an increased release of the elastases as well as collagenases, and on the other side it causes the inhibition or deficiency of alpha 1 antitrypsin, so that there is an imbalance. So increased release of elastases and collagenases is going to destroy the alveolar walls. Due to destruction of the alveolar walls, there is a decreased surface area of the respiratory membrane, and due to destruction of the walls of the alveoli, the individual alveoli are going to coalesce and they combine and result in formation of much larger alveoli. So many alveoli are replaced by large sized alveoli, which results in overall decrease in the surface area of the respiratory membrane. On the other hand, there is also increased secretion of mucus and the inflammatory edema of the bronchial epithelium. On one side, there is destructive process because of imbalance between the elastases and anti-elastases in the lungs due to cigarette smoking, and on the other side, because of the irritants in the smoke, there is inflammatory reaction, and there is increased secretion of the mucus, and there is inflammatory edema of the bronchiolar epithelium, which leads to the narrowing or obstruction of the small airways. The process of obstruction makes it difficult to expire, causing entrapment of air in the lungs. So this is the slide again showing us the pathophysiology of the emphysema. So due to cigarette smoking, there is imbalance between the elastases and anti-elastases. Because of the irritants in the smoke, they produce an oxidative stress by causing the release of certain substances. There is recruitment of the leukocytes into the lung tissue. There is more release of elastases, and on the other hand, the irritants in the smoke are going to cause inactivation of the alpha 1 antitrypsin. So there is functional deficiency of the alpha 1 antitrypsin. There is increased release of elastases from the neutrophils, as well as the macrophage elastase activity is also increased, and together they are going to cause the damage to the lung tissue, and as a result of damage to the lung tissue, there is destruction of the alveolar wall, and the alveoli are going to coalesce to form larger alveoli. And on the other hand, there is inflammatory reaction going on in the lung tissue because of the irritants of the smoke, and inflammatory reaction causes the release of inflammatory mediators, and these inflammatory mediators produce the cause an excess secretion of the mucus and inflammatory edema, which leads to the narrowing of the airways. So in this slide we can see the destruction of the alveolar walls rather than, which results in formation of large size alveoli. So this is the normal this is a diagram of a normal alveoli. You can see there are many alveoli, and while in case when there is damage in emphysema, the individual walls of the alveoli, these walls are destructed, and these alveoli are going to coalesce, and they will result in formation of much larger alveoli. and the result of this destruction is a decrease in the total surface area of the respiratory membrane and an inadequate gas exchange across the respiratory membrane. So this is the outcome of the obstructive as well as the destructive process occurring in the lungs in emphysema. So excess mucus secretion is there. There is inflammatory edema causing chronic obstruction of the small airways. Due to the obstruction of the airways, there is increased airway resistance. Now this increased airway resistance is more marked during expiration as compared to during inspiration. This is because of the fact that during inspiration there is stretching of the airways because lungs are expanding. So due to stretching of the airways, the air can pass through the partially obstructed the airways. But during expiration, the lungs, they have a tendency to collapse because thoracic cage and the lungs recoil during expiration. So it makes the obstruction even worse. So there is more resistance to the flow of air during expiration. So increased airway resistance, which is especially marked during expiration, making it difficult to expire. When there is difficulty to expire, this will result in trapping of air in the lungs. And this point we have already talked about, that alveolar wall destruction is going to greatly decrease the diffusing capacity of the respiratory membrane because of decrease in the surface area of the respiratory membrane. So as a result, there is abnormality of VQ ratio in the lung as a result of emphysema, and this abnormality of the VQ ratio in certain areas is going to produce a physiological shunt when there is inadequate ventilation because of obstruction. A physiological shunt is going to be produced, and it is going to produce dead space in other parts of the lung. When there is, due to destruction, there is loss of respiratory membrane, there is also damage to the capillary bed. So when there is damage to the capillary bed and there is damage to the respiratory membrane, ventilation in that part of the lung is wasted. So when ventilation is wasted in a certain part of the lung, the dead space is going to be produced. So it's a disease which causes areas of increased physiological shunts as well as the area of increased dead space. One more thing to remember is that because of increased airway resistance during expiration and difficulty in expiration, there is trapping of air inside the lungs, and trapping of air inside the lungs cause an increase in functional residual capacity and the residual volume. Increase in functional residual capacity and the residual volume. So the net result of all these effects is severe, prolonged, devastating air hunger, which can even cause the death of the person because of severe progression of the disease. And it's a high penalty to pay for smoking. This is word is pay. High penalty to pay for smoking. This we have discussed in relevant to the chronic cigarette smoking. If there is congenital deficiency of alpha-1 antitrypsin, this is going to cause a destructive process in the lungs in the same way as we have discussed in conjunction with the cigarette smoking. So that was about the emphysema. Now we are going to talk about the second obstructive lung disease, which is asthma. Asthma or the bronchial asthma. Asthma is characterized by spastic contraction of smooth muscles in the walls of the bronchioles, resulting in extreme difficulty in breathing. In about 70% of the patients who are younger in age, the asthma is caused by allergic hypersensitivity to foreign substances in the air such as pollen. So most common cause of asthma is allergic hypersensitivity to the different substances present in the air such as pollens. In older people, asthma can occur due to non-allergic hypersensitivity to the irritants in the air such as smog. So there are two basic causes for asthma, the most common cause being the allergic hypersensitivity, and in young people asthma is caused by the allergic hypersensitivity to the irritants such as pollens, and in old age asthma is commonly caused by non-allergic hypersensitivity to the irritants present in the air such as smog. Now coming to the pathophysiology of allergic type of asthma. So there can be the triggers. Trigger is the allergen to which the person is sensitive. Now inhalation of the allergens to which a person is sensitive results in allergen antibody reaction. Allergen is antigen or a substance to which the person is sensitive. So inhalation of allergen, it results in an antigen allergen reaction. In this reaction, IgE antibodies are involved, and you all must be knowing that IgE antibodies are attached to the surface of mast cell. So antigen antibody reaction or the allergen antibody reaction on the surface of the mast cells result in degranulation of the mast cells. Due to degranulation of the mast cells, there is release of the chemical mediators from the mast cells mainly and other cells as well. So these mediators include the histamine, slow reacting substance of anaphylaxis, eosinophilic chemotactic factor, and bradykinin. So basically there is mast cell degranulation. So when mast cell degranulation is there is release of the chemical mediators which are going to produce their effect. So there is release of the eosinophilic chemotactic factor that cause the attraction of the eosinophils to the site of inflammation, and there is release of the slow reacting substance of anaphylaxis. There is release of histamine which causes increased vascular permeability, and there is release of bradykinin which causes the bronchodilation. So these substances produce different these mediators are released which produce the effects like there is spasm of the bronchial smooth muscles, there is excess mucus secretion, there is increased permeability of the capillary membranes resulting in leakage from the blood into the interstitial tissue of the lung, and there is mucosal edema. And these are the immediate effects, while later on there is infiltration of the eosinophils into the area as well as of the neutrophils because of the chemotactic factors are being released for their chemotaxis, and there is inflammation caused by these substances and the chemical mediators, and this is going to cause later on the infiltration with the monocytes and the lymphocytes. Now because of all these effects, that there is spasm of the smooth muscles, there is excess mucus secretion, there is increased vascular permeability and mucosal edema, there is obstruction of the airways. And again here you must remember that this obstruction causes a difficulty in expiration. Because of obstruction, there is increase in the airway resistance which is more marked during expiration, and as a result there is trapping of air inside the lungs, and this trapping of air inside the lung is going to cause increased functional residual capacity and increase in the residual volume. So this slide is showing you the comparison of the normal airways with the asthmatic airways. So this is the normal airway. You can see the diameter of the airway. This is the epithelial lining. These are the mucus secreting cells, and this is the lining of mucus. So there is a thin lining of mucus. There are a few mast cells and the eosinophils present, and in asthmatic person when there is hypersensitivity reaction, you can see the changes. There is spasm of the bronchial smooth muscles, and you can see this spasm is going to cause constriction of the airways, and there is hypersecretion of the mucus. A thick layer of mucus is there, and this is going to cause obstruction of the airways, further narrowing of the airway. And this excess mucus secretion is because there is goblet cell hyperplasia. They are going to secrete excess mucus, and there is infiltration with the of the interstitium of the lung tissue with the eosinophils and with the neutrophils, you can see. So these are going to produce inflammatory reaction, and these are going to produce the effects that we have just discussed. So as a result of these changes, there is going to be an increased airway resistance, I just have told you, and because this resistance is more marked during expiration, so there is increase in the functional residual capacity and the residual volume, and this ultimately is going to cause an enlargement of the chest cage, resulting in a barrel shaped chest, and there is hypoxemia, and this is going to cause dyspnea in the patients suffering from asthma. So this was about the pathophysiology of asthma and the effects or the outcomes which are produced because of the hypersensitivity reactions occurring in the asthma and the changes in the lung functions. Now we are going to talk about the tuberculosis. The tuberculosis is a chronic bacterial infection. It's a chronic bacterial infection in the lungs caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis. So causative agent in case of tuberculosis is Mycobacterium tuberculosis. If the lung tissue is invaded by Mycobacterium tuberculosis, the tissue macrophages are going to invade the area and wall of the lesion by formation of the fibrous tissue. Now this walling off is to prevent the spread of infection. This is the response to invasion by Mycobacterium tuberculosis. I am repeating it again. When lung tissue is invaded by Mycobacterium tuberculosis, macrophages are activated. They invade the area and wall off the lesion by formation of fibrous tissue. This walling off effect is to prevent the spread of infection. However, in about 3% of the people, this walling off effect fails to limit the spread of infection. It fails to limit the spread of infection. So when walling off effect fails to limit the spread of infection, there is extreme destruction in the lung tissue caused by this Mycobacterium tuberculosis. The destructive process in the lung tissue, the lung parenchyma, results in formation of large abscess cavities. Large abscess cavities are formed due to infection with Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Abscess cavities are cavities filled with pus. In the later stage of the disease, there is formation of large amount of fibrous tissue. First there is formation of abscess cavities, and in later stage of the disease there is formation of large amount of fibrous tissue throughout the lung, and this results in a decrease in total amount of functional lung tissue. So functional lung tissue is decreased and there is more amount of the fibrous tissue. As a result, what will happen? Due to formation of large amount of fibrous tissue in the lungs, the workload on the part of respiratory muscles is increased. So respiratory muscles have to work more to cause the expansion of the lungs, because the lungs are fibrosed. They are less elastic now. So the workload on the respiratory muscles is increased to cause the pulmonary ventilation. And there is a decrease in the vital capacity, and the breathing capacity is also decreased because of this fibrous tissue which is being formed. Because of destruction of the functional lung tissue, there is decrease in the surface area of the respiratory membrane, and there is increased thickness of the respiratory membrane. So surface area is decreased and thickness of the respiratory membrane is increased because of fibrosis, and because of this there is a decrease in the diffusing capacity of the respiratory membrane, and there is an abnormality of ventilation perfusion ratio. Ventilation perfusion ratio is decreased, which signifies inadequacy of the gas exchange in the lungs. So this was about the tuberculosis, its brief pathophysiology, and the changes in the lung functions that occur as a result of tuberculosis. So when we are discussing these diseases, we are mainly focusing our attention to the pathogenesis, that how does the disease occur, and we are focusing our attention to the changes in the lung functions and the lung volumes and capacities. Now we are going to talk about pneumonia. Now pneumonia is an inflammatory condition of the lungs in which the lungs are filled with the fluid and the blood cells. More appropriately, we should say that the alveoli are filled with the fluid and blood cells. So it's an acute inflammatory condition in which alveoli are flooded with the fluid and the blood cells. This is caused by a bacteria, frequently the pneumococci. So most common cause of the pneumonia is the bacterial pneumonia, and it is the pneumococci which are responsible for causing the inflammation in the lungs, so that the alveoli are filled with fluid and blood cells. Because of the infection with pneumococci, there is inflammation of the pulmonary membrane or the respiratory membrane. Due to inflammation of the pulmonary membrane, it becomes porous. Porous means there is increased permeability, there are pores formed in the respiratory membrane and it becomes porous, due to which there is leakage of the blood cells into the alveoli as well as the fluid. So there is exudation of the fluid and the blood cells into the alveoli, and the large areas of the lungs may become consolidated. Consolidated means that the lung is filled with the fluid and cellular debris. So when alveoli are filled with the fluid and cells, large areas of the lungs are consolidated. Now because of these changes, the gas exchange process in the lungs is declined. There is decline in the gas exchange process occurring in the lungs, and this is because of the fact that there is decreased surface area of the respiratory membrane. And when gas exchange process is affected because of decreased surface area of respiratory membrane, there is hypoxemia and there is hypercapnia. And we must be knowing that hypoxemia is decreased oxygen content of the blood, and hypercapnia is increased concentration of carbon dioxide in the blood. So there is retention of carbon dioxide and there is decreased supply of oxygen to the tissues. There is hypoxemia, decreased oxygen content of the blood, and ventilation perfusion ratio is decreased because of decreased surface area of respiratory membrane. There is inadequate exchange of gases, so ventilation perfusion ratio is decreased. So this was about pneumonia. Now we are going to talk about atelectasis. Atelectasis means collapse of the alveoli. Collapse of the alveoli. Now atelectasis can be localized, means restricted or limited to a part of the lung, or it can involve the entire lung. It can be localized when it is restricted or limited to a part of lung, or it can involve the entire lung. It can be caused by either the airway obstruction. When there is airway obstruction, the part of the lung which is beyond the obstruction is going to collapse. Or it can be caused by lack of surfactant, and we have studied about surfactant in detail, that it is a substance present in the fluid lining the alveoli which tends to reduce the surface tension. So when there is lack of surfactant, there is increased surface tension and there is a tendency for the alveoli to collapse. So atelectasis can occur either because of airway obstruction or it can occur because of lack of surfactant. So last topic is artificial respiration, and I am giving you this topic as a self-study topic. So you are going to read it yourself. Topic is artificial respiration. You are going to study it from Guyton, and I'm going to ask you tutorial teachers to ask you questions regarding this topic. So artificial respiration is a self-study topic. You are going to do it yourself and you're going to study it from Guyton. And that's all for today's lecture, as well as we have finished the topic of respiratory physiology, and I hope you understand this entire subject, and thank you for the listening.